Time Podcast with Mike and Laurent. It is Tuesday, November 9th. In this episode, Manchester City embarrass United again. The sword swings again, but this time for Farke and Smith. And West Ham are in the top three after defeating Liverpool. But first, Mike, I had a thought. And I pose this question to you. Is the Premier League on its way to being bigger than the Champions League? Discuss.
On its way, definitely, yes. It's certainly not there yet, but it's almost as if, we were talking about this a little bit before we hit the record button. The Premier League is Jeff Bezos, right? They're Amazon, and the rest of Europe has been decimated by listen, the pandemic was the kill shot for a lot of these big clubs, and how they all started crumbled. But there was a lot of cracks in the foundations before that. So,
for sure.
This precedes the pandemic, and it certainly precedes all of the recent things that have sort of led to this epiphany that you've had, right?
And I'm just going to give you the trigger. The trigger was Conte, and then it sort of was just brewing in my mind. I'm like, Newcastle in the Premier League with this sovereign wealth fund. Then Conte, no disrespect, choosing Spurs. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This is like, we talked about it as a little joke of like, it's like that New York City. The rest of the Europe is becoming Newark. It's like, it's sucking all the energy in, and you sort of have this vortex of wealth, money, and power. But the next logical step was like, is it bigger than the Champions League? And I think it is. I think we're getting very close to that moment where England can just be like, yeah, nah, I'm all right.
Well, and you'll see that win out, right? Because we've talked it till we were blue in the face on this show about how Barcelona is just in tatters. Juve, we don't give enough to, but they're a mess too. They're currently top of their Champions League group. I understand they've beaten Chelsea before.
But they're also in 10th.
Right. Real Madrid hanging in there on name alone in the group stage.
I think with Real, Florentino Perez may be a lunatic. He's not stupid. He sort of saw, I was like, let's sell Ronaldo for $150 million.
Oh, no, sure, absolutely.
And buy young players and just roll with this. I think we'll be okay. Yes. And then I think the Barca collapse made it go, oh, thank God. We're better than everybody else. We're good.
Well, listen, they're the only boat that hasn't taken on that much water, right? In that league. Atletico is still sitting there, but they're a shell of their former selves.
They're okay. Well. I think they're okay. They sold Griezmann for 140 and bought him back for 40.
Yeah. No. And I'm not saying so much that, but it's just it feels like all of the juice, all of the attention. Now, we are biased. We are a Premier League show primarily. We think about it pretty much every second of every day, but we also used to think of it in the context of, you're a Man City fan, I'm a Spurs supporter, but man, the big European nights, Spurs playing against Barcelona and Real Madrid in recent years.
I guess the real question is does anyone think any team in Europe is going to win the Champions League?
No, and that's kind of what I was getting to, right? In so much as when we had the All-English final in 2019, it was a fluke, right?
It was
on both sides, because Liverpool, not that they didn't deserve to be there.
We just had one last year too, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. Forgot about that for a second. No, but I was just saying, getting back to, the inflection point, like you said, Ronaldo being sold by Real Madrid did two things. It took a lot of the juice out of La Liga, because you lost the Batman versus Joker thing with Messi and Ronaldo in whichever order you'd like to choose. And so you basically had a superhero with no supervillain, or no equal, if you will. So that sort of petered out, and then you saw how the Messi saga ended. That's
due to mismanagement by Barcelona.
It is.
It's a catastrophe how badly it's run.
And that's what I'm saying. As much as you can say that the pandemic accelerated a lot of these things, they were almost already in motion, a lot of them. And you look at Juve, where Ronaldo went, yeah, sure, they won Serie A. They basically won Serie A every year for a decade. So it wasn't so much that he made the difference. But then they don't win it last year. They're in 10th this year. They're in complete disarray. They spent $150 million on the guy. What did that really get you? Did it get you the Champions League? Nope.
No.
So
it wasn't. But I think the larger pieces here are just there's a lot of indicators. There's a weakening of La Liga. There's a weakening of the strongest team in Italy. Bayern basically runs its league. Their only competition, they buy the manager, the best striker, and their best defenseman from them. So we don't think Red Bull Leipzig is going to do anything. And the structure of the German league is such that it doesn't allow for massive investment. So it just is where it is. And the reason why Bayern Munich is even anywhere near these other clubs is because they're so much better run than anything in Spain or Italy, right? So you have that. You have Inter winning a league and then selling everyone off.
Just fire sale.
Ironically, to the Premier League, right?
Yep.
And then the vortex of energy. But the thing that triggered it for me was like, I started thinking, I'm like, well, Conte coming to the Premier League. It is the premier place to be. And that just brings more eyeballs. It is the premier place to be. You know, when there's a sovereign wealth fund, yeah, sure, Qatar picked off Paris Saint-Germain. Why? Because it had the name Paris in it. That wasn't a big team. PSG were not the biggest team in France. The biggest team in France is Marseille. The biggest team in France historically was Saint-Etienne or Lyon. They bought it because the name. The same reason Manchester City was bought. I'm of no illusion. They bought it because it says Manchester in the team.
Right.
That's about football, right? So Manchester City is purchased by my team. And I just think that, you know, we saw with the Super League that Florentino Perez is a really shrewd actor. He saw the landscape of the league. And I think to a lesser extent, Agnelli at Juve, he saw the landscape and said, the boat be sinking.
Yeah, we got to get in on this.
Yeah. And he tried to create a system where he could capture the wealth and power of the Premier League by tricking them into closing their league.
And so think about Think about how this was marketed when it came out last season, right? It was Barca and Real and Juve.
And they are still holding to it, by the way.
I know. And the Uniteds and Liverpools inviting the Arsenals, the Tottenhams, and so on and so forth from the Premier League. No. They were trying to hitch a ride on the gravitational pull that was pushing everything and everyone, as we've seen since, closer to the Premier League, closer to London, closer to Manchester. And so they were almost as if they were selling off of, they were like borrowing against themselves, selling off of their brand. It was snake oil. Right? They're all saying, hey, you'll get to be in a league no matter what happens. You'll always be in a league with Barca, with Real Madrid, with Juventus. But in reality,
Tottenham and Arsenal snuck their way in there.
I would, yes, but why? Why? It's the same thing you just said about the word Manchester. They're in London. That's why.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. And this is the weird sense that we're a world that we're in now. Realistically, what we're talking about is the world superpowers of Europe would actually get to be in a league with Arsenal, with Tottenham,
that's what
Man
they want. They would
right.
Real Madrid would love to be in the Premier League.
Exactly.
If they could, they'd be like, "Yeah, we'll be in the Premier."
And
Fuck
so
yeah, we're in.
And so they tried to
like,
make
we're not going to get relegated. Let's take out Burnley and put in Real Madrid. It's not that far.
Right. Exactly.
And then Barca would be like, "Yeah, I'll be in the fucking Premier League."
They already
too.
go to Wales. Fuck it.
So
that's
I do think,
it's interesting.
It's fascinating. It's a big thing. And you know, this week we had a heavyweight fight that was really not a heavyweight fight. We had heavyweight name fight, the biggest legacy club ever, Manchester United, versus the biggest representative of the nouveau riche of in my club, Manchester City. For now, we'll see. And then another pasting where the narrative is Ole out. We've done Ole out so much, but I just have to give shrift to this team. This was as bad, if not worse, than the Liverpool game, just that City didn't score 5 goals, because the same thing happened in the last 20 minutes where City just passed the ball around, except United weren't a man down. That's worse.
So, and I thought about this.
And it was dominant from end to end.
It was
complete, total dominance. City understood what to do against a back three. Ole went, worked against Spurs.
Yeah.
You know what? This ain't fucking Spurs. This is Manchester City, the best coached, best funded, best collection of players to play a certain way in the world, right? I'm not saying we're the best players in the world, but the best collection of players to play in the system they want to
The
play.
right amount of the right specific players in that system, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, I
I
mean,
think notably though, no Jack Grealish, which actually was interesting because City played faster.
so when you talked a lot about, I watched Kevin De Bruyne closely
He was good.
because
He was good.
he was okay. He was good, but he wasn't De Bruyne good, and he
No,
was doing a lot of those passes, and just basically he does them 10 times, and you only see the highlights where he hits it once,
he
right?
played
Um,
deeper. He
yeah,
still looks a little like he's on painkillers, but this
that's
was
what I
a
mean,
perfect game for him because United didn't get close to him. No one tried to
right?
kick him.
Yeah, yeah.
They had no moments of anything. This
Mhm.
was a game for Cancelo and Walker. They
Oh,
completely
no, no, no,
annihilated
and one more,
who?
Bernardo Silva.
Well, he
Holy
just does
cow!
whatever the fuck he wants.
No,
That's his
but
role.
having the it wasn't Walker so much. It was watching the tandem, and I'll get into the commentary on this in a second because it was lacking, I thought, severely.
They're all
Bernardo
afraid to
Silva
hammer him.
shooting down the right, and having Cancelo, just kind of finding him. Listen, the goal right before halftime that frankly ended up killing the game. If it was 1-0 coming off the second half, I think it's a totally different United.
They
But that
got
was a
broken
gut
by
punch.
that goal.
Yeah, it was a gut
Yeah.
punch right before half. But just watching the two of them just basically pinging balls to each other the whole game. It wasn't just for that goal. It was fantastic. There was not a man of the match. It was the two of them. I couldn't decide between
Yeah,
them.
and Rodri. I mean, the thing is that happens with City is it's frustrating to be a City fan because it is methodical,
Mhm.
it is collective, it is robotic in the sense that it's precise, and you don't really have that much fun narrative story. It's just whenever City win, this is what they're supposed to do,
This is yeah,
and when they lose, what a heroic effort it was from the other team. Uh,
right.
and so again, between Liverpool and City, Liverpool is just a much more charismatic team in the way
Sure.
they play, and we'll get to their game as well.
But hold on, I want to
But
get back
City,
into that narrative.
But City annihilated them, and we go into Ole out, and we go into a bunch of coaches getting fired, and he's still there.
Yeah. Well, so
It's
before we get
incredible.
into the new sword of Damocles,
The
I
sword
want
swung. Many heads are everywhere.
there are just bloods everywhere.
Yeah,
We're watching here in the States. It's on NBC Sports. You've got
yeah.
Arlo White and Graham Lasso and Lee Dixon on the call, and it felt like for most of that game, instead of talking about what an absolute, and it's like you said, it's going to the narrative. It's at Old Trafford. Their fans are chanting for Donny Van de Beek to come on for some
Which is
reason. Um,
because they don't want to chant. You don't know what you're doing
right, because
because they're nice.
it worked for Nuno. Um, but
To be fair to United fans, they really don't. They really
they
do
don't
back the
hate him. I
manager.
get it. But
Nice.
it just felt like, and this is, I talk about it a lot on the show. It's the man-made narratives, right? It's the excuses. It's the just what the narrative was is that, like I mentioned, that Joao Cancelo and Bernardo Silva were unbelievably dominant
Yes.
on the day.
Well, but it was the
Kicked
way
the
that they
shit out
played,
of
right?
them.
The reason
Yeah,
that's the thing with City.
they
Like
were like sharks in
if
water.
right, but if United had any coaching or knew what to do, where they said, "Okay, Cancelo," if Ole had gone to say, "Wan-Bissaka, go fucking lock him up," what would happen? Would be Phil Foden would have been free the whole time. Because every time I saw Foden out on a wing, Wan-Bissaka was on him. I was like, he ain't getting past Wan-Bissaka. Nobody
Yeah,
gets
right.
past him. Like Wan-Bissaka is a special player, one-on-one defense. Incredible. Going
Mhm.
forward, disaster. But when you're on the wing and trying to go past him, you're like, yeah, that sucks.
No, sure.
So instead, you just pass the ball back out to the half space where Cancelo is, and he crosses it in that Trent Alexander-Arnold space, and he just
I
puts it in.
I wrote this note late in the game. I
Yeah,
don't know if it finished that way. I stopped looking, but United had more shots on target on their goal than they did on City's. That's kind of game
that's
we watched.
correct. They
So
did nothing. And I mean,
yeah,
Ronaldo had one
and
shot, it was a volley, and that's it.
it was nice, but
It
it was
was
not on
nice.
target. I
It was
think anything
scary
missed.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
always is.
was scared.
But that's the thing is that like they had. I'm going to state that again in case anybody didn't hear it. Manchester United had more shots on target on their own net than they did on
Yeah.
their opposition's Manchester City, and yet
Yeah.
we sat here hearing about like making excuses for Ole and basically saying that they shouldn't be calling for him to be fired, and he
If
this that.
not now,
I was like,
when?
well, And that was the interesting thing because they've lost out on Conte, which I think a lot of fans have remorse, like buyers or not buyer's remorse, not seller's remorse. But now the question becomes, and I've said this before too, like if you're going to fire your manager, you better have a good one
Do it now.
waiting.
Yeah.
But they didn't. If you ask a United fan, like, well, who would you have wanted? The first, you'll get two answers, right? The first one is fucking anybody. And the second one is shit, I don't really know. It would have been Conte, but I don't really know. And so they're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place now. And Spurs have the last laugh, even though they
you
lost
want to get
3-0.
another sense of dominance?
Go for it.
You ready? Manchester City had 4 players with over 100 touches. Cancelo, Walker, Rodri, De Bruyne, boss.
Okay.
And for United, the top, the 4 players that they had over 50 are Luke Shaw, Fred, Victor Lindelof, and Harry Maguire.
All 4 defensive players.
Right. Basically, they created nothing. They did nothing. Scoring, what's this? Shot creating actions. Luke Shaw had 2, Ronaldo had 2, Fred had 1, Fernandez and Wan-Bissaka each had 1. Shot creating opportunities, De Bruyne 6, Gabriel Jesus 5, Bernardo Silva 4. So this is where you can get, these are basically potential assists, and they do hockey assists. So so City had 26 shot creating opportunities, and United had 7.
Yeah, that's about right. And by the way, on that topic, a word on David De Gea, who I thought was fantastic on the day, but
he's always fantastic.
Well,
he's really good.
He's well traveled.
Well, he's been keeping them in games lately.
Yeah, no, certainly.
But it was really, really bad. And I think the laughable thing is, like I was sort of alluding to, is just Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still has a job. We did a whole episode on a sword of Damocles. We got the wrong manager. We've seen Nuno go. Now we've seen our friend Dean Smith from Aston Villa, and then our friend Daniel Farke, who basically can't win in his league. Although they let him coach, the team won, and then they fired him.
So these two firings really struck a chord with me.
They're both very strong club guys. Yeah,
Dean Smith, you really. I sigh, and I feel like that's the proper response, because you want to defend it because they were so good last year, and they've been so bad in the last month. And I talked about it last week.
To be fair, they've been bad for a year. To be fair, they have 18 losses in 2021.
Yeah, and it stinks. Like, that's one where you're like, man, you wish he could have figured it out. And they've, like we talked about, we've had a lot of juice, a lot of money on Villa in our shitty bets recently. And we've lost it all because
So I mean, I think it's sad. They handled it really well. I think it's one of those where we thanked you for lifting our club. The players from the team all calling him like the best manager they ever had.
Yeah.
A guy who was a fan of the club. So Dean Smith gets a lot of respect, and I think he'll get another job fairly quickly, but it does open it up. It does open up a lot of fun and interesting people to get in. And then Farke was more trust the process. I think he probably knew he was going to get fired before the game because he didn't celebrate any of the goals. And then they fired him just before the break. So if you don't know, there's a guy called Stuart Weber. He's their director of football. He does YouTube videos. You can hear him talk about the process. He's like I hate to use the Billy Bean. He's the Theo Epstein of Norwich. But he's an out front spokesman for the team ahead of the manager, right? It's kind of different in England where the manager is the only voice you hear. You barely hear the players. There's no coverage. There's no access. You don't hear the board. You don't hear chairman. It's pundits and the manager talks for 20 minutes a day. 20 minutes per game. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you get. The fact that they have a technical director, president of the team who does all this talking is great. So you get a little bit of insight into Norwich. He does say things that are weird, like we want to be in the top 25 teams in England. I wouldn't like that either, but they will hire someone interesting. The narrative is Frank Lampard. There's no way they're hiring Frank Lampard. He's not a good coach. The narrative on Villa, though, is our friend, Mr. Steven Gerrard, which I like. I like Steven Gerrard.
That would be good. I like that hire a lot.
He has passion. He gets English football. He yells and screams. He gets fired up. He runs down the touchline. He
And
did take
that's
Celtic. Sorry, excuse me.
Rangers.
He
Oh, how
did
dare
take
you?
Rangers to an undefeated season. Now, it is a farmers league. I do understand that. He hasn't had great success in Europe with Rangers, but that was it feels like he's just been at Rangers, blah blah blah. He's been there for 3 years. It's not nothing. So
So let's be honest
I'd love
about
to
Steven.
because let me just stop for a second. The Aston Villa job is as good a job as you can get in the Premier League.
As a
And
first-time
if
Premier League manager.
yeah,
Yeah.
and if what I think is true, that the Premier League is now getting to be one of the biggest leagues in the world, if I'm an ambitious coach in Europe, that's a job I'd want. Like, I would be, if I were Graham Potter, I would ditch my team for that team.
Yeah.
That's a big club. And he's from
Absolutely.
Solihull, which is nearby. So
Well,
I don't know if he's a Villa
Let's bring
fan,
it
but
back to
yeah,
Steven Gerrard. There is
I love
no
him.
question, no qualms about what his eventual intentions are, is to manage
If they'll
Liverpool.
have him.
If they'll have him.
Yeah.
This is how you prove yourself. And by the way, you'll be at Aston Villa for 2 years, maybe a little more. And that time, I bet you Jurgen Klopp is like, check, please.
Yeah, I think it's getting close. I think
Right?
it's getting close.
So
They
you're
haven't
working at it.
exactly reloaded.
Exactly. So, but you're looking at it in the sense that Liverpool are going to have a down year in the next 2 to 3 because
They just
Salah's
had
legs
one.
are going to. Right. Well, they might be in the midst of one. Who knows? We'll talk about that in a minute. But Salah's legs will fall off, and they won't have been able to replenish to the point where they should have been able to keeping up. But by the way, their Fenway Sports Group runs them. They're no Manchester City. They're no Chelsea, right? They are running
No,
on
they're a team with $5 billion, not 15, not 50. It's
right.
$5 billion, which is
But how
good.
much of that are they really going to spend? Hey, remember the Mookie Betts trade, Fenway Sports Group? So,
yeah, but in
that'll
baseball,
be
you don't
interesting to
have
watch.
it's
But
different,
all
right?
that
Like
to say,
they won't burn Fenway down.
it's true. All that to say, Villa find themselves in 16th, 2 points off of Burnley for the relegation zone. So, I mean, the move had to be made.
They're way too good for that.
Of course, but this is where, like I said, it's a great job. Gerrard can come in with all of that attacking talent, mold it, and bring them back up to around mid-table, which is probably where they belong. The interesting thing is we're still we're about a quarter of the way through the season now, a little more, but you still 2 wins puts you in 8th.
Oh, it's
right?
it's super tight. There are no gaps really.
Yeah.
It's sort of like a progressive kind of system. Even Norwich are now pulled level with Newcastle, and I mean that 3 points between the bottom 3 is legitimate. But we'll talk a minute about that. Farka, I don't know what's going to happen with Norwich. There's no reason they can't get out of it. They win 3 games out of 5, and they're in business.
Absolutely,
right?
And they've got a light stretch coming too, which is why I've defended Daniel Farka on this show before, and I'm going to do it again.
He's out of his depth, dude.
I know, but doing it after a win is what I think it was because I was already drunk for college football, but I was like, that was mean.
Yeah, but here's the thing: like, it also shows
they knew they were going to do it already.
But it also shows they knew where they were going to do it. They were process driven. Like, oh, you got 3 more games.
Right.
Well, if he sucks now, just fire him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that 3 more game stuff, it's bullshit.
It's complete bullshit.
Unless these teams are really that badly run that they literally listen to what happens on TV. Like, in some sense, you should admire United for being like, we got our guy. Even if you don't agree with him, we're keeping him. Although it's laughable that 3 coaches have been fired since Ole lost to Liverpool and Manchester City at home by a combined 7-0. That's the context we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's insane. This Manchester United, they just got Ronaldo. And, and then, we go into that game. I do want to talk about the best manager not in that we've talked about, and that is Senor Moyes of the West Ham. That game was good, and West Ham are level on points with the mighty Manchester City, and it's legit. They are a +10. They do it their way. They run the same 11 guys out week after week, rain, slow, sleet, Europa League, or storm, they go out there and play.
Mm-hmm.
They pressed, they harried, they have the best midfield in the Premier League.
No,
Whose
but
midfield is better?
Declan Rice is
But think about it. Best
is
Premier
a
League in
problem.
the league in terms of like these two players will be here. Are they better? Cities are rotating. It could be 5 guys.
Oh, yeah, that's
You know
fair.
what I mean? Like the
Okay.
best pair of 2 guys who play together. It's Manchester City, but you know what I mean? Like even Gunnar Solskjaer couldn't fuck up the team if he had Rice and Souček in the midfield. So they've got this best midfield.
Well,
and,
this is
and
the
I
argument.
and I bet this game because I was like, I didn't put it in our best bets, but I did bet it after the fact. I was like, draw no bet plus 275.
There you go.
They have a better midfield than Liverpool does right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's going to play in the midfield for Liverpool. I'm going to go put this money on West Ham thinking the draw was the safety, but I did not see them winning the game. There was some controversy. I don't agree. It was a little bit of a we protect goalkeepers. I'm like, listen, Allison is fucking 6'7" and catches everything. And you're telling me Agbana fucking hit him? Get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
You dropped it and it went in. Fuck off. So set pieces win. They get 2 goals on a set piece and 2 other chances that they broke in with Fornals and Antonio and Fornals finished. Allison almost got it. They win 3-1. Trent Alexander with the fucking free kick. Amazing balls that got me the cheap assist for Mo Salah, which was nice in fantasy because I needed it on the free kick there. And then it was a touched over. It was really good. I mean, as much as I shit on Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he was guilty for the 3rd goal by West Ham because he literally stood there and Kurt Zouma just flew over him. It was like, I guess I should have looked around and maybe boxed somebody out, but he just was looking at the ball. And West Ham win, and the place is bouncing. I mean, if you would have told people 2 years ago when the West Ham supporters were rioting at the owner's box against Burnley, and I think the owners in fear of their lives because this is West Ham, home of the ICF and every hooligan movie ever, that their stadium would come to life, have energy, be a dangerous place to come, and that David Moyes would be their manager, you'd have been like, get the fuck, that's never going to happen. Because the owners tried that. They thought they were getting that in Pellegrini in terms of style of play. Mm-hmm. But what they really realized, what I think the owners really realized is fans just want fight. It doesn't have to be entertaining. It doesn't have to be pretty popping the ball around. But if you run in and you harry and you kick a guy to get the fucking win and only have 30% possession, you can be an exciting 30% possession team.
Oh, you certainly can.
And that is what West Ham are. And when I see Mikel Antonio, I go, can we buy your shitty striker who came from shit league just to be like, can you imagine the square peg and the round hole of Manchester City? He would make City so different because he's like the fucking broken down jalopy that is like, he's like the Millennium Falcon of your team. It's like, yeah, it's a piece of shit. It's my piece of shit.
But it's my piece of shit.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit football player.
She still can move, all right?
He can still move, right? And he would just batter people around. He'd fuck up half the passes that went to him.
Nickname.
What?
The Millennium Falcon. That's such a good fucking nickname. Wow.
I don't think the nerds will get it for Mikel Antonio.
No, we gotta have our friend Jesse from the Athletic on. I'll text him and the Millennium Falcon, Mikel Antonio. That's really good.
Yeah, maybe we just named this episode the Millennium Falcon. See if these names will change anything. So that was a great win, and West Ham become a story for the league. Listen, they were going to make top 4 last year almost. Rice and Antonio went down in the back end of the season, and they couldn't sustain it, and they got Europa League. So this is not a fluke. This is a real team, and I think the big piece for Liverpool is they give up goals a lot and often. And I think this time, last season, it was their defense where they lost their 3 pairs of defenders all disappeared. And we've never seen Joe Gomez ever again. He just was eaten by the fucking turf monster.
So I think
And
they have
now
some debt from that last year still, right? Like Van Dijk is not 100%. You've got other
he was
pieces to it.
no, but he was great. He was great. He held Antonio in check. The problem is that you can get through them and you can get the ball off them in the midfield because Thiago Silva is not what he's supposed to be. Gino Wijnaldum was a special player.
Thiago,
I think.
not Thiago
I think
Silva,
they.
Thiago,
I
the
think.
other Thiago. But
Did I
yeah,
say Thiago?
anyway.
Thiago, whatever the fuck his name is. They're all Thiago. There's like 14 Thiagos and 37 Silvas, and I don't know which one these Portuguese are. Okay, I'm sorry. Rafa. Give me can you guys have some fucking different names, for Christ's sake? Is this part of our misogyny and elitism?
Yes, it's very elite. We're punching down. Spell your names differently.
My
punching
name is
down.
Laurent from France, okay? How about that for a name? Enjoy it. Sucks. So it's the midfield where they're losing out. They don't have the depth they had. Fabinho wasn't able to affect the game. He had to come off. And I think that this time their weaknesses are in the midfield. And I don't think they realized how good Wijnaldum was in that you could just play him and you could play him every week. And he was always there and he always showed up and he ran and he ran and he ran. And I think that Henderson is probably not as good, although Cresswell kicked him really hard and could have got a red.
No, he's got a lot of miles on him, man. Like that's the thing, is that's the common denominator with this entire team. It wasn't a knock on Van Dijk before. What I was getting to was exactly what you got to was the mileage and the quality in the midfield, where it's just it's lacking and it's leaving them wide open. And the funny thing is that you've compounding it still, because you still got Robbo and Trent Alexander-Arnold, a peach of a free kick, by the way, which really almost helped me in fantasy. I lost by 0.9 points. And for those of you who aren't in the league, who don't understand, well, what does that mean?
That's literally like a fart that got registered that you didn't get. We're
talking about 367 points. But one guy had 367.9, and I had 367.
I don't know where you get those fractions from, you lunatic.
Minutes.
Minutes.
You get 0.1 points per minute. Played.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So West Ham, incredible, huge story there. The less we talk about Antonio Conte's debut with Tottenham, the better. This game was okay. It was really unwatchable, but I did tweet during it. It was a tough watch. It was like, two. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's like Maginot Line, 1939. France is sitting there going, World War I was hard. I really don't want to do that again. And the Germans are going, is he really going to make us go over? I kind of not sure. So they stood there for a year, and the English gave away Czechoslovakia. Anyway, so that's my World War II reference that have been disappearing. But that's what it felt like. It was very much a stalemate, very much a quiet game. But what I did see from Spurs was fight. They fought. They fought for 50-50s. It was not a meek, passive performance. They just have the same problem they've had, which is they can't create anything. I didn't realize this, and I tweeted it. Spurs are the second lowest scoring team in the Premier League.
And where do you think that falls? The blame of that falls. And I'll tell you why.
Narrative says it's Harry Kane.
It's not.
I know. It's still, to this day, Eriksen has never been replaced.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, they need a creative midfielder.
Looking at their lineup, and
they can't play Skip and Højbjerg. They can't.
This is a deviation.
As much as you want them to, you can't.
No. This is a deviation from what they had been doing. Obviously, Conte coming in with the 3-4-3, but so you've got the three across the back: Reguilon, Skip, Højbjerg, and Emerson. Now,
that's Reguilon.
Good. You need to effectively play with a more or less having one holding and one forward. And Højbjerg is the most frustrating because he's played it really well for Denmark. We saw it. We fawned over it all summer long. But the weird thing is, I think that was a shot across.
That fucking pass, you cunt.
Right. But I think it was a shot across Ndombele's bow that he didn't get a start. Lo Celso came on, and it's funny how this is a microcosm of Gio Lo Celso as a Tottenham Hotspur player.
The cross that was like off the ground.
So before that, he picks up a loose ball right around the 30 yards out or so, maybe a little less. and he gets a step and he curls it off the post. And I went, the fuck, where did that come from? Inches away. Because you know what? Everton went, oh, it's that fucking guy. Yeah, do your worst, pal. And he actually almost made him eat it. And then later on in the game, stoppage time, Everton take a red card, straight red. And we have one last opportunity. It's a corner kick from the left side, and it bounced before it hit the first man. It was the worst corner kick I've ever seen in my life. And Spurs fart noise and don't get anything from it.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
wonder what the team could look like. I think Conte will figure it out. There's no doubt about it. He will figure it out. But I wonder
If you're
what the
going
team
to play
would
that
look
midfield,
like. How do you play? Maybe you have to play Lo Celso and Ndombele.
Yeah, maybe, probably not. But listen, if you're going to play that midfield, I don't necessarily hate that, but you can't have a 3-man island, right? You have to have, which had happened for some of the game. Ironically, Lucas is a guy who will try and travel with the ball, right?
He carries it. He does not break lines though. With
right.
The pass.
Well, I understand, but he has done it before. He's not necessarily the guy you expect to do it. But do you want him as a speedster on the wing? Do you want him trying to cut through places? Because he's never been the guy who makes eye contact with the guy on the other side of the field and makes a run and gets hit for a ball. He's never been that guy, despite the fact that he's so fast.
Yeah.
So does he make way?
There's something has to give. They've got to find a way. Listen, the only thing that we know is Eriksson is going to come back.
Yeah, that's fine.
The only thing we know is that Kane and Son have to play. I would be wary to be like, Harry, will you just tell Southgate that you're hurt or something, please? Can you just not play for England?
Just give me a minute, I mean, look, and let's be clear. There have been 8 or 9 players from that England team that went all the way to the final who have had shit seasons.
Yeah.
Shit seasons, okay? Yeah. Half of them are on United, I feel like, but
but that's not because of fucking United. That's because of Ole.
But so we're not, and I'll defend him till the day I'm dead. But it's not a Harry Kane problem. It's a midfield and it's a service problem.
I get it.
Many times over the course of his tenure at Spurs, he's been absent or uninvolved or whatever. Now the narrative is that he doesn't want to be there.
Well, whatever the reason is, he's not getting the ball and he's not scoring and he's lacking confidence because he feels like he has to score. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. And I get that. What you need is Alan Saint-Maximin. And that's what I want to go to. You do. You need a Mercurial.
I like him.
Weirdo.
I love him a lot.
I love him. And I do want to go to Newcastle, not for their game. They got a draw versus Brighton. Sad for Brighton. Fucking sucks because that means I'm not excited about that. That was part of my super parlay Laurent Love Fest. But Eddie Howe is there, and he has officially been appointed. And then he reunites with Callum Wilson, Frazier, and Richie. So he's got some guys he knows there. I have a take on this, and one of the things I worry about for that is, hey, we lost another dinosaur manager. But maybe Eddie Howe's Bournemouth was living off being better than the dinosaurs. And the less dinosaurs there are, the more you'll notice that he had the worst defensive teams ever in the Premier League. So if everyone plays, who is he going to beat?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because his whole thing was like, I don't care. I go for the wins rather than the losses. And I'm going to be better than these 3 goon teams that I can feast on and get my points off of. But if everyone's playing, like, who's going to go down?
Well, there's one obvious one, but they're the kings of not going down. I wouldn't even call
Burnley?
it staying up. Yeah, it's just not going down so much, right? Like
a draw. They are the draw. They draw the Premier League.
Yes. How would you characterize Watford, though?
They're going down.
No, I know, but but is it because that they're going to play themselves out of the league, or they're not going to show up and even try?
Ranieri's a defensive coach.
Yeah, right.
So he has. That's 2. There's 3 spots.
Mm-hmm. and Norwich are already in a hole, right? So, although Norwich relative to Newcastle, the only difference is it's a 9-goal difference. But
and then I guess one of the questions is are our friends at Brentford really in trouble? They're slipping, and then our friends at Leeds are in a troublesome spot. So it's somebody. It's in this range of Brent. I mean, we don't think that Brentford, Leeds, or Aston Villa are going down. Like
So
there's only 4 teams that can go down
let's go
that
in
we
on
think
Brentford.
about, right?
Let's go in on Brentford for a
If they
second, because
don't
this
have
is
their
going to
keeper,
test. This is going to test a
correct?
theory
Yeah.
that we talked about on the show before the season started, before we told you that they would beat Arsenal. They had a philosophy where they're going to be focusing on the quality of play as much, if not more, than the results when making personnel decisions, both for players, for managers, for backroom staff, whatever. Well, they lost. They've been losing, right? What are they at? They're 4 of the last 5 they've lost, which is not great, Bob.
But 4 in the league, so 4 on the bounce.
That's what I'm saying. 4, they've lost 4 on the bounce. And you look at this and you go, well, they played the Norwich off the park. I think the expected goals, if I'm looking at it, was
it's a whole goal.
It's 2.79, so it's 2.5, 2.8 to 1.1. Right now, they got battered by Burnley. I understand
that went.
They
badly.
lost a game against Leicester where they got hit on the counter. And if I were to guess, yeah, they had more expected goals. Not to say that XG is the end all and be all, because again, as we've talked about on the show, it does not.
Yeah,
it's devoid of context. So I'm not just going off of that specifically. What I'm merely saying is that are we really going to? And 12 points is not 8 in the context of the.
They got a big game. They're going away after the break to Newcastle.
Okay,
they got to get that game.
Huge.
Have to.
Because
huge, and that's going to be tough because it'll be Howe's first game again, like we thought with Spurs going there after the purchase. And to be fair, Newcastle did come out and punch Spurs in the mouth.
They did,
they were
like
scary.
Bit their lip.
You were worried. You're like, fucking motherfuckers. But the quality at Newcastle is quite low. Like, that's a bad team.
Yes.
And you can get at them. But if Burnley go up there thinking they're going to go get those points, they're going to be in trouble. Now, Ivan Toney does come from that area. He was a Newcastle player, so maybe he'll be excited to go back up there and maybe he'll find some groove. But, we have to worry. These are all viable things where there are players that, they don't have crazy money, and the players are unproven and all those things about Frank, and are they ready for the fight, and can they go again? So they can be pulled in despite the fact that we've loved them. Same with Leeds
we don't
last
want that
season.
to happen.
Yeah, same with Leeds last season. There's no reason that they can't get sucked down, but Rafinha has been incredible. He saved their ass again.
Let me go to that game in a second, but I still want to have another word on Brentford because I'm obsessed with them. But that's the thing that I'm so fascinated about. 4 out of 5, 4 on the bounce, lost in the league. You could say some of the results they were harsh. Some of them they weren't. Nope. So where does that sort of leave Frank? I don't.
Oh, he's fine. He's fine. No, they're not going to fire him.
Well, here's the thing. We're talking. It's November 9th, right? The games are going to come.
International breaks, and they come fast.
They're going to come thick and fast from basically after the break, which is the 20th, November 20th through January 10th. Realistically, you're going to play probably 10 games in that stretch. So you're basically doubling the data you have between now and then. At what point, if they decide he's starting to be on thin ice, because look, we didn't think that that Aston Villa, Smith, sorry, brain fart. We didn't think he was on that thin of ice. We were like, all right, it's getting there, but not Dean Smith to the point where he would get fired. So if Brentford, again, it's all about the context too. If they lose that game to Newcastle, how much leash does our friend Thomas Frank have, right? So
I think he's fine. I mean, I can't imagine they'd fire him. So let's see.
I don't think they will either, because I think that they've got they being the men who run Brentford. But what I'm saying is, if they look bad, and I don't think that they will, but if they've gotten their doors blown off by Burnley, that's a really bad loss.
That was a really bad loss.
So if you start to pile up really bad losses, 2 teams that you should beat, that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for getting fired. If you got your shit kicked in by a Liverpool, by a City, by even Wolves or Spurs, okay, fine. You're a newly promoted team. You took your lumps. You get some lessons. You go again next week. But if these are games that you're sort of looking at and you're saying, all right, I got to get to that magic 40 number or 35 number, whatever it's going to be to stay here next year, those are numbers that you're crossing off that you counted on at the beginning of the season.
So you're ready for my big problem? So Raya didn't have a great save percentage for them, 69%, 70%, which is sort of league average. Faced 29 shots, had 20 saves. Alvaro Fernandez, their new keeper, 9 shots on target, 5 saves. That's 55% save percentage. If he does not get that number up, they will start losing games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
goalkeepers matter. You don't notice it until you have a shitty one.
Well,
if they have a shitty one, they're really in trouble.
Even
it's not a joke.
What I would say is it's disproportionate. It's on a curve on the lower part of this quality scale, right? Like you feel a shitty goalkeeper so much more than you feel an incredible keeper. And with that said, Chelsea and Edouard Mendy are at the top of the table, and I understand it's mostly to do with him. But you feel
when they had Kepa, there was fear, panic.
And it's also it's loss aversion, right? It's human nature 101. You feel points lost or a bad goal much more than frankly the Chelsea Brentford game. And that's one game that is going to be a feather in Thomas Frank's cap, not the other way around, even though they lost, right? Because they beat the piss out of them.
They didn't get that. I do think we should probably just talk very briefly about Chelsea dropping points. They battered Burnley. Burnley had 1 shot. I think you called this one.
Sure did.
You thought that there would be a draw, and they got it. It was a bad day at the office, but there is something. So, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but Burnley and Sean Dyche actually outperform their expected XG and goals in every year they're in the league. They are an outlier. If you made a chart of where teams cluster in shots and allowed and whatever, it's always in the same spot. And then it's Burnley is way out here to the point that you can't actually include them in your data because you're like, I don't know what Burnley do, but this is the type of shit that Burnley do. They get battered and get results. I don't know how they do it. I don't know why it happens. There is a togetherness, a fight. It can't just be that they get lucky because they do it year after year after year. So the Dyche magic comes through. I know you loathe to say that Arsenal's playing well, but the fact is Arsenal's playing well.
No, Emile Smith-Rowe. Look, Emile Smith-Rowe is turning this team around.
Well, they don't give up goals. They don't give up goals. Yeah. I tried to tell everybody. I'm like, they had the 3rd best defense in the league last year. Yeah. They had the 3rd best defense in the league last year. There was some controversy in this game in that Smith-Rowe scored a goal where there was a Watford player knocked out in the 18-yard box.
Yeah.
Which was, if you have an unwritten rule that people want to enforce, make it a fucking rule. Otherwise, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to hear
Spurs
that.
got fucked on it in the West Ham game? No, sorry. Wilfried Zaha in the Crystal Palace game. Same exact thing. That's why Tanganga, who has been banished to the Netherrealm, took the first of 2 pretty much back-to-back yellow cards when he went after Zaha, right? So you're right. You're right. You can complain about it, but if it's a rule, then it will stop, right? And the weird thing is that much like many things in European football, it's sort of a rule, right? Like if he was clutching his head, they'd be like, whoa, stop the game.
Yeah, they would blow the whistle.
So
if he's just if he's lying down and being weird, then no.
And the thing
by the way,
that,
like, can I talk? Yeah. Can I do a digress and a sideshow and a tangent?
Do it.
Conor Gallagher, you are the greatest player I've ever seen. You win games by yourself, and between Zaha and Gallagher, I think Crystal Palace are going to finish in the top 10. Holy shit. What a fucking legend. I can't deal with it.
He's been going to Catholic church a lot more.
He's completely replaced Jack Grealish as my love child. He's got the same hair.
It's ironic because Grealish is on your fucking team now.
I don't care. I don't love my team. I love other people's teams.
Yeah.
Much more than my own team. I mean, I'm looking at his picture right now. What a man. I can't deal with Conor Gallagher and his awesomeness. He just is everywhere. He's here. He's there. He's every fucking where. He's Conor Gallagher, and he and Crystal Palace with their, admit it, Wilfried Zaha is a son of a bitch, but if he was on your team, you would love him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
He's fucking fun as shit, that dude.
Yeah, sure.
And he's a shithouser. And had Spurs bought him in the years that Pochettino wanted him, you wouldn't be having this fucking problem.
No, well, we had Sonny, so it would have been one or the other. But no, it wasn't even Spurs that
No,
wanted
you
him.
could have had them both.
It was Arsenal who wanted him. It wasn't even Spurs. Which,
Okay.
oh my God, I would have put a hit out on him by now at this point if he was on Arsenal. But
Yeah,
no,
so
it's
there's a little Vieira narrative, a little juice on
it
Vieira's side.
is. It's interesting.
A little that they won the transfer window. So we're covering all the teams. There's a lot of good stuff going on. And especially as we're going into the international break, there should be nothing unturned that we don't talk about, that we don't sort of, lament and feel good about and think about in terms of what we feel. Because when these games go, and it's a 2-week break, there is a deep sense of longing, emptiness, and sadness. I feel like Charlie Brown staring out the window when it's raining, and my only friend is fucking Linus, and that makes you Linus. Although I do have a bigger head, so I'm probably Charlie Brown. You're
definitely.
Yes, you're much more Linus than I am.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll go
He's
with
much more optimistic.
I'm more of a peppermint patty,
A lesbian?
Yeah.
I don't think we can say that. I'm not sure.
We're punching down again. Stop punching down.
I don't think we're punching down, sir. What the fuck relationship was that?
There you go, sir.
Marcy.
Yeah.
Fucking peppermint patty. That was weird. Fucking Norwegians. Anyway, do you have anywhere you want to go, Mike? Any final thoughts?
Not for today, but on Friday's episode, we will be previewing USA Mexico, which is going to be a lot of fun. Huge game for the Americans, and it sounds like Pulisic is going to show up. So, very excited for that. I'm excited.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I thought of this because people talking about. I got into one of these conversations with Kartik and the American fans, and I was like, "Is Pulisic just Jerry Deulofeu?"
Oh man, maybe. Shit.
Our best player is Jerry Deulofeu. That's all you have to know. Yeah. Come on, he's not that good. He's fucking Jerry Deulofeu, who, by the way, I loved when he was at Everton, when he was at Watford. He was fun as fuck.
He was a fantasy darling at Watford.
And his fucking weird ass fucking haircut. I don't know where he is now. I can find Jerry Deulofeu, but is Christian Pulisic just Jerry Deulofeu? I think the answer is yes.
Oh.
By the way, I did find some old friends. I was watching Real Sociedad play because they're top of La Liga, and there was David Silva and Adnan Januzaj leading the team. I was like, wow. And our friend Isak from Sweden. He's
Udinese.
Oh.
I knew that because
he's in Italy. Because they played Salernitana.
I'm pretty sure they beat the shit out of Salernitana recently. We'll give an update on that. Let's see.
Oh no, was it Napoli?
They got smoked. They got smoked by Lazio, which was a game that's fine. But there's a couple of big 6-pointers. A couple of big 6-pointers coming up for them. So
Lazio, I want you to know, literally a fascist team that, of course, the grandson of Benito Mussolini is on.
So Salernitana is sitting in 19th.
You cannot be that on brand, Lazio, to actually have the son of the grandson of the guy who invented fascism is on your team and say, we're not fascists. You're fucking fascist. It's okay. They even have a fucking golden eagle on their shirt.
Come on.
No, I mean, I don't love that it's a Nazi symbol, but the shirt it's sky blue.
It looks good. Hey, come on, listen. Style knows no politics,
especially in the fucking Italian league. The logos, everything is cool except for Sampdoria. I think they have just a logo of a hobo.
I was about to say,
what is that shadow?
Their crest actually looks like the like the Solo cups from like the 90s with just like the spray on the green, like the neon and purple. Like that's kind of what they're rocking there. But speaking of, that's who Salernitana plays next. And I'm nervous because they play Sampdoria, they play Cagliari, and those 3 teams make up the bottom 3 right now. This is going to be basically a 2-game stretch for Salernitana where we're going to find out if they can get their heads above water even for a second, because after that they play Juve, Milan, and Fiorentina, and then Inter in the league. So they're not going to get a point out of any
wins.
of those 4 games. So if they can get 2 wins, which I think they can, and just bank 6 points and then just sit back for a little while.
You're not staying in the league, okay? You're going down.
Hey, these 2 games are going to go a long way because these are 2 beatable teams. So if they're literally Salernitana is 19 on 7, Sampdoria is 18 on 9, and Cagliari is in dead last. We do have the worst goal difference, but that's going to change.
All right, Mike, give me my cue.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that was the Squeaky Bum Time Podcast with Mike Salerno and Laurent Cortines. We are the football wing of the Chop Sports Network, despite the fact we don't read ads anymore. We record on Tuesdays and Fridays, so be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you never miss an episode. And please leave a review and rate the show, because we'll read about your thing on the show, because we love you all. And that is all. I will see you on Friday, but then I'll be off for a week.
Yeah.
And Mike will be running the show.
That's going to be terrifying.